Hey yo, what is groovy? What is good? It's your boy Papa Capes and we are back with another Raid Shadow Legends video. Yes, I understand I haven't uploaded for like 10 days. However, mental health is important. Decided to take a step back, which is one of the worst things you can do for a newer channel. However, mental health is important. I stand behind that in my streaming community. It's one of the core pillars that we've built upon. It is crucial to the foundation. Always prioritize your mental health. We are going to be talking about faction wars today. Now, this isn't going to be like meta teams for faction wars. This isn't going to be who you should build, who you shouldn't build. Because as you guys know, and if you don't know, and it's your first video watching, I don't really know much about Raid. So I come to you guys for help. So I'm going to be talking about my faction wars teams today. Just going to be talking about who I use and whatnot. And we will get into some battles, right? Because ever since the free gear removal has been introduced, I think faction wars is easier. Hear me out. Not because of anything to do with champions that we have access to, not because of meta champs that I might have stumbled onto, purely because of the fact that you can now use the preset manager, which you could always use, but utilizing the preset manager just became kind of insane for faction wars, because especially for an account that's like newer, you are limited on gear, right? So you don't find yourself with enough gear to keep every single champion up on your account. But now I've been making progress in faction wars by doing this one simple thing. All right, so let's jump straight into faction wars real quick. And I'm just going to work from left to right quickly just to update y'all on exactly how many stars I've gotten in each faction crypt. Lizardmen, 22. Knights Revenant crypt, 4 stars. Skinwalker crypt, 27 stars. Undead Horde, 6 stars. Demon Spawn, 18 stars. Ogren Tribe, 31 stars. Orc, 35 stars. High Elf, 28. Dark Elf, 38. Sacred Order, 37. Barbarian, 40. Bannerlord, 24. Dwarf, 19. Shadowkin, 1. And Sylvan Watchers, 25. Keep in mind, I started this account with Supreme 6, which was for Supreme Gallic. Obviously, Dark Elf as well with Kale. So my 2 nukers are from Orc and from Dark Elf. But they're no longer my highest stars in terms of faction wars. Barbarian is now. And I mean, if I have to go and look real quick at who I use for the Barbarian faction wars, I can show you. As we get into Barbarians, you can see that we have Fatman, War Maiden, Haikatun, Barath the Bloodsoaked, Alika, Soulbound Boya, Kalia, and Atur. And the main thing now is for me to just utilize the preset manager, save gear from my main team that I use for like Demon Lord, or that I use for Hydra, or that I use for Arena, and just move that gear for free onto the champions in faction wars. And I feel like this is going to make faction wars tremendously easier than what it has been. It's not going to be a walk in the park. You still need to build your champions. You still might need to book some champions. If we're comparing faction wars now to what it used to be before the free gear removal, accounts like mine, or with the age or the tenure of my account, would still struggle in faction wars, right? If you first of all have to deal with limited champions, second of all have to deal with limited gear, you simply cannot push further than wherever your ceiling is, right? However, now the ceiling has been heightened because we can utilize the same gear across your champions free of charge. I'm gonna go through each and every one of my factions real quick, and the main question I have for you guys, if we stumble across somebody that I'm not using, that I should be using, please let me know down in the comments below, right after you hit the like on this video and subscribe for the journey, yo. So let's dive into, I'm just gonna go in order, yeah? So Bannerlords, Michelangelo has been a game changer, Sir Artemage, Knight Errant, Steadfast Marshal, and Conqueror. So as you can see, I haven't even leveled these into like level 30 or even 4-star them to get to level 40. But that's the team that I use for Bannerlords right now. Obviously, Mikey being the carry. On to the next one, we'll go to Demon Spawn, Diabolist, Achak the Windarin, Hellgazer, Houndspawn, Garlos, Helmor. So I think that I do use the top 3, and then I throw in a Houndspawn with a Helmor, all right? So that's for Demon Spawn. And then we go down into High Elves. We've got Apothecary, we've got Eleanor, Ethlin the Golden. Yo, for the record, I know that he's got a kit on now, but that's because I use him in Tag Team Arena. This guy is insane. I might actually build him next as my next 6-star, right? Because he's shown potential that I didn't even know existed for an epic. especially for Faction War. I'm not sure what other content I can use him in as yet. I still need to tinker around and experiment, but in Faction Wars, Ethlin is cracked. He's cracked. And then we move on to Alhain, and then instead of using a double apothecary, I'm going to try Exemplar. I recently opened her, so I'm not exactly sure what she does. Her A1 attacks one enemy 2 times, Ascended skill attacks one enemy 2 times, places an extra hit if this attack is critical, puts one of the target skills on full cooldown if the first hit is critical and the target is under a weakened debuff, increases the cooldown of one of the target skills by 2 turns if the first hit is critical and the target is not under a weakened debuff. Her A2 is attacks 3 times at random. Each hit has a 75% chance of placing a 25% weakened debuff for 2 turns. And then her A3 is attacks one enemy, has a 75% chance of placing a freeze debuff for 1 turn and a block active skills debuff for 2 turns. So then she obviously brings some crit rate to arena as well, which we won't use because we're discussing Faction Wars. So I might use her with the top 4 purely because I just opened it, right? So I need to test. On to the next one we go, Undead Hordes. So Undead Hordes, we've got login champion Dark Alhain, login champion Dark Aethel, and then we've got Sorceress, who we've already used a Sorceress for the Really Keeper fusion. So this one we can build. We recently opened Vogarth, and I've heard really good things about Vogarth. So I'm excited for Undead Hordes to come back in rotation so that I can see how they do in Faction Wars. And then, to be blatantly honest, Wretch or Temptress, I'm not sure which one I'll use. I guess I'll fool around with both. What does Wretch bring kit-wise? A1 attacks one enemy 2 times, has a 20% chance of placing a 50% heal reduction debuff for 2 turns. A2 attacks one enemy, heals this champion by 15% of damage inflicted. And then A3 attacks one enemy, places an HP burn debuff for 2 turns. Okay, that's Wretch. And then Temptress brings, attacks one enemy, has a 30% chance of stealing one random buff from the target. A2 attacks 4 times at random. Each hit has a 50% chance of placing a leech debuff for 2 turns. And A3 places a 25% increased attack and a 15% increased crit rate buff on this champion for 2 turns. Grants an extra turn when Seducer is on the same team. Seducer, is that another champion? So I'll dabble around between these two when Undead Hordes comes back in rotation, and then I'll see who works better. On to Sacred Order we go. Otto. Whew, lucky enough to open April as well. So those are the 2 Legos. Then we've got Lady Atessa, Really Keeper, and Talia. Like I said, I always prioritize Legos, then epics, then rares, which I'm sure is a rule of thumb for most of you, right? Unless you know through and through that you've got a rare that is absolutely cracked. We also just opened Mistress of Hymns last night. I'm not sure who I would use instead between Talia or Mistress of Hymns. I have no idea what a kit brings. Attacks one enemy, heals the ally with the lowest HP by 15% of the damage inflicted. A2 places a 15% continuous heal buff on 2 allies with the lowest HP for 2 turns if this attack is critical, and then revives 2 random allies with 50%. Okay, that's an easy one because that will give us a double reviver, right? Do we need a double reviver? I'm not sure. I say that's easy, but now it's not. What do you guys think? Who would be better? Talia or Mistress of Hymns to go with Really Keeper, Lady Atessa, April O'Neil, or Artur? Maybe even I should consider taking Lady Atessa out instead. Let me know, please. Like, again, most of my knowledge I've received from this game right now has been obviously alongside my research and me consuming some content, but you guys have been absolutely crazy in the comments. The amount of value you've added to my raid journey has been insurmountable. So I appreciate you, and please continue to do exactly that, yo. On to the next faction we go, which is Dark Elves. We've got 2 Kales over here. I probably will use both. So we've got our main Kale, we've got a secondary Kale. I've used 1 Kale as food before. And then we've got Spider, we've got Delver, we've got Crimson Helm. If I don't use both Kales, do you guys think I should throw in Paragon or Spirit Host? I don't actually know what Paragon does. Attacks one enemy, has a 50% chance of decreasing the target's turn meter by 10%. Damage inflicted is proportional to defense. Places an unkillable buff and a 25% increased attack buff on a target ally for 2 turns, and then attacks 3 times at random. Each hit has a 30% chance of placing a 50% heal reduction debuff and a 25% decreased attack debuff for 2 turns. Damage inflicted is proportional to defense. And if you ascend the skill, it then changes the 50% heal reduction debuff to 100% heal reduction, but still at 30%, right? And then instead of a 25% decreased attack debuff, it's a 50% decreased attack debuff for 2 turns. We move on to Barbarians. I already mentioned who we use for Barbarians, but let's go back into it. At our disposal, we have Fatman, War Maiden, Haikatun, Barath the Bloodsoaked, Alika, Kalia, and Atur. I'm not sure the last two that I use because I've already removed the gear, but I do think it might be, they all have jewelry on except Barath. So I think I've taken Barath out because he would have had a ring on from my previous Barbarian run. So I'm not exactly sure. But out of that roster, who would you guys end up using, right? And why? Knights Revenant, we've got Rector, we've got Malkith Bloodflock, we've got Executioner, who again I can build at least one because I've used him for the fusion already for Relic Keeper. And then we've got Acolyte, and then either we run a double Executioner or we throw in a Coffin Smasher. Not sure. We've got Knights Revenant active right now, so we're going to be running it today just so I can show you kind of what I meant about the gear. But let's move on to the next for now. Ogren Tribes. We've got Ugo, we've got Grunch Killjoy, we've got Shatterbones, Rock Beast, and Rocktooth. So again, that's the main 5 that I use. Ugo's crazy. Like, we know, I haven't highlighted the carry, but I think it's blatantly obvious who the carry is in terms of damage when you look at the roster of these teams. On to Dwarves we go. We've got Geomancer, Bardal, Fellhammer, Chemist, Grumbler, Runic Warder. So Dwarves is active currently as well, if I'm not mistaken, so we're going to be running some of this. I'm actually just building Chemist for food, right? Like, when I say build, I mean like just leveling him up to a 5 stars so that I can use him for food to get another 6 star. But I'm going to be using him. I'm going to be throwing him in here because I feel like he's higher level than the rares right now, and I'm not going to just dump something into the rare if I don't know how good they are, right? So we'll check. It's going to be an interesting one. Lizard Man, we've got Venomage, Jizzo, Basilisk, Terix the Restless. I recently opened Terix as well with the 2x Void, and then I'll probably throw in either or just to get those 5 in, right? So you can 3-star the faction crypts. Shadowkin. All we need are Shadowkin champions, man. Because right now, like, we've only got 3. So I just need to focus on keeping Shadowkin, even if they're 2 stars. And then we just throw them in and utilize them, right? To get to that 5 minimum. Skinwalkers. So we've got Gum, Yellowhand, who decent. We've got Fane, Fleshmonger, Snorting Thug. I recently got him as well in a shard, so excited to check him out. And then Blood Painter. I've only got 5, so that's the 5 that I'll use in the roster. Sylvan Watchers. We've got Lemonese, we've got Croydon the Blue. Yo, another moment real quick. He's actually quite cracked because Sylvan Watchers, I think, was 2 days ago when it was open and I was running this exact team that you see here. Yes, I understand. I got 2 stars, level 1, haven't pumped any potions into them to level them. None of that. But Croydon the Blue, this guy's got potential, yo. He's honestly cracked. And I enjoyed. That's another thing that I do. I enjoy seeing these champions and their animations and how they've been designed and how they attack or how they utilize their abilities. Just their entire kit. When you see it for the first time, it's kind of cool. I don't know if I'm the only one that can appreciate that, but different attacks, different animations, it's just so sick. I'm so used to the meta champs that I see on YouTube videos or that I might be lucky enough to have on one of my accounts, right? But seeing these champions that I've never seen before in action, it's really cool. Last but not least, Orcs. We've got Supreme Gallic, Terror Beast, Pigsticker, Wyvern Bane, and Duck the Pierced. We recently opened Duck the Pierced, so he's the newest addition to this team. So I'm excited for when it opens again, just to check him out. This is again just somebody I'm building for food, so that's why they're in the team. So those are each of my faction rosters, or at least the faction champions I have at my disposal to build these teams with, right? Or to build my teams from. One thing I think that's crazy from my current position in Faction Wars and the resources at my disposal is I cannot yet get to a place, or I'm not yet at a place where I can even think about team synergy in Faction Wars, purely because of the limited champions. However, I'm trying to make progress and I'm trying to make do with what I have. Therefore, I decided I have to just utilize my gear. And that is what we're going to move on to next. Actually, before I dive into the crypts over here, I've got a question for you guys. Do you keep rares for your Faction Wars team? If you do keep rares, is it purely because of a limited number of champions in that faction that you have at your disposal? Or is it because you found rares that actually carry these crypts, that carry these dungeons? What is the reason behind the rares that you keep, if you do keep rares for Faction Wars? Okay, so this is going to be the first example. As you can see, our current progress is 1 star across the board, except for stage 3, which is 2 star, weirdly enough. Maybe the timing of Rector's heal came in, I don't know. But let's go. We're going to add, let's take him out of the sparring pit just so that we've got some variety over here. So one thing I'm going to then do now with the free gear removal is what I want to highlight, right? Rector's build, she's one of my mains. So then I check, okay, he's another support, right? Does he need accuracy? He places a shield buff on all revived allies for 2 turns, and that's after he revives the allies, right? Doesn't need crazy amounts of accuracy. So I think I will put on my Artor's build on him because he doesn't need like mad amounts of accuracy. So I call it speed and EHP art for Artor. All of my presets have been named in a certain way that I know exactly who they're from or who they're for, right? He needs some accuracy over there. So is he going to be the main nuker? She might have to be the main nuker, right? Defense, support. So she's going to have to be the main nuker over here. She's the only attack person, like the only attack champ that I'm using. Put her into collection. So off the bat, I'll go into my filter, into my global presets, and then main nuker Gallic. Whenever I've got a nuker in my faction wars team, this is the kit that I'll then put onto them, right? Obviously the stats won't directly translate because of the accessories, but it's better than nothing. And so far I've seen this work for me in terms of making progress in comparison to where I was. So I guess that's going to be our nuker. Do we have a ring? We do, just so that it's not an empty slot, right? Executioner, defense. So over here, I guess we'll go with Geomancer on this build. But it's high accuracy though. Do you need accuracy? What am I doing? Yes, you do. Okay, technically there are some benefits to having accuracy. So we'll go with the Geo build here. My Geo build. And then throw a ring on there. Just taking the first one, to be honest. It's like, we're not at super high levels or anything as yet, right? So this at least will allow for me to up the stars that I've currently got. And then another support. Do you need accuracy? Not really. Filter, preset manager, and we will go with who goes build and just throw in a ring. Attack, defense percentage. Okay. So there is now my team. We will be using Rector, we will be using Malkith, Executioner, Acolyte, and Magus. So now they're built, they've got that kit on, and let's get it started, yo. Keep in mind, when we started this, we only had 4 stars throughout the entirety of this faction, right? And that's before we actually utilized the gear from our main teams onto these other teams. Boom. Round 1 done. 3 stars. So far, so good. No deaths at all. No struggles, no hindrances, no obstacles. Let's just keep going. I've stopped here because the next one is stage 7, which is a boss fight. So usually what I've seen is even with this gear, free gear removal, sometimes the boss can still hit you up with one that you didn't expect or didn't see coming, right? So let's see how this goes. I don't really have any crazy like nukers. We might lose him. Yep. So as you can see there, the boss literally has taken out one of them, right? Who was it? Is it Malkith? Okay, so he takes out 2. Okay, so the boss does eliminate, it was Malkith. And then on the left, so it was Magus. So now what I'll do is, right, I'll just go back to champions real quick and just check if there's anything. Did those keys count? I can't even remember if those keys counted. Did it take the keys now? Let's go into Knight's Revenant. And then obviously we can do a little something here, right? So just for some additional HP and defense. Triple roll into HP, crazy. And then it was Magus. Okay, and then on Magus, we will go into the tavern and we'll get it to 4-star. Again, this is just for the video. Like I wouldn't pump potions into anything other than food like this, right? So this is just for the video. So let's go back into the crypt. I know that the only changes we made on Malkith was purely just the ring, right? But then on her, we actually went up an entire level. So let's see how this goes. Maybe we get better RNG this time around at the boss. Also, let me know, is this something that you do if you don't get 3 stars? You're gonna try again to see if you can get 3 stars and maybe a 3rd time if you don't do it the 2nd time? Or do you just move on? Because like now I've made changes instantly, and that's not just because I'm recording, that's literally what I'm like. Almost like a completionist element, right? A true fear. Stun across the board. Are you attacking mages? Ooh, that's not good. A revive came in there. Wait a minute. This could be a 3-star right here. Hey, let's go. Okay, W revive. Let's get it. Boom. We move on to the next one, right? So that's kind of what I feel is something that could potentially be overlooked, is just how valuable this free gear removal actually is especially in Faction Wars, especially for earlier accounts who only have enough gear for 5 or 6 champions, right? Like, don't get me wrong, I've got a substantial amount of gear on my account in comparison to a new account, because my account's not new, it's like almost day 150, like 130 something, right? So this isn't for those end-game players who have an excess amount of gear. This is for a specific age of account that's wanting to progress in Faction Wars to get additional resources from the rewards and make their way closer to Lydia. Oh, it's so nice to see, because they're wearing my kind of best gear that I've got on my account, the resistance is quite high. So when a lot of these champions attack me, and just seeing all of my champs just resisted, pretty satisfying. I don't think we 3-star this unless another clutch revive comes in. I don't think we 3-star this, just judging on where we're at. But we've got 2 revivers though, so it's not impossible. Okay, we've removed that poison bomb, which is huge. Wait, who's got a cleanse in this team? Somebody just removed that debuff. Wait, we might 3-star this. We're looking kind of okay again. Fantastically done. There we go. And just like that, as you can see, resources for gear to be crafted in the forge is received. We've only got 1 more key, so we won't do that. But I mean, at the beginning you saw we 1-starred stage 1, we 1-starred stage 2, and we 2-starred stage 3. And here we are all the way 3-starring down to stage 9, purely because of the gear, and we're able to collect an epic book. And now we move on to dwarves. Let's hope we have the same effect with dwarves. The difference might not be as substantial, purely because you can see Geomancer's done his thing. The only place we haven't 3-starred in dwarves for now, progressing, is stage 7. Let's see if we can change that. So who do we add? I'm just gonna go with the first one, right? So now we're going to have to re-kit Geomancer, because we took his kit off again. Preset manager, I've got it saved as Geo main right here, but then I've also got it saved as a global preset. So I'll just go into the global preset, double check if it's the same in his preset, which it is, because I've just equipped it and they're all there. So cool. Another tip, if you're going to adapt this to your Faction War playstyle, is that if you use champions in tag team arena and they just built so that they can add some value but not as strong as they could possibly be with the strongest gear that you have in your account, remember to save that gear for that specific champion, right? I made the mistake with Venomage, I made the mistake with War Maiden, I made the mistake with April. These are champions that I use in my tag team roster. So when I took their gear off and put on my main gear, I forgot to save their gear that they were wearing as a preset before doing that. So now I have to go and re-kit those characters, re-kit those champions, so that they can still add value in Faction Wars. Do not forget to save the gear before making any changes. And then another mistake that I made, which will be tip number 2, is make sure that either right after you finish your Faction War session, you re-kit your main team. You reapply their gear, you re-equip their gear. I made the mistake of doing this and then not putting the gear back in my main team, going into Demon Lord and doing 20 mil damage less. And then it happened with the first key. And then I thought to myself, why is this happening? Is it a glitch? Was it a horrible RNG? And then I used another key before I even checked my gear. So I used 2 keys in Demon Lord. That's when I realized, oh snap, I forgot to put my gear back onto my champions. So remember to put your gear back on right at the end of your Faction Wars. Okay, we've got an attacker here. So I guess he'll be our main nuker. We'll go with Galax Kit over here, and then we'll just put a ring on. We've got another attacker here, so we'll go with Kale just off the bat. This is just how I do it, just to give you guys kind of a vague idea of my approach to it. If you're in Faction Wars and you're actually sweating it out, you're going to want to make sure that you're not just kitting them according to where that says attack or whatnot. But I use it as a quick reference point. And then what does he do? Places a shield, heal reduction. Okay, so on here, I guess we'll go with Ugo. Needs some accuracy. So we'll go with Ugo's build, and then we'll put a ring on it. What? HP, what do you do? Decrease attack, so you need some accuracy, but nothing crazy. Whoops, nothing crazy. And he's only level 6 as well, right? So on here, I guess we'll go for Rector, maybe. Rector's build. And boom, there our team is ready, right? So let's see if we can beat the boss with our recent modifications. Some of these attacks look so cool, man. Why hasn't Geo used his A1 yet? Just curious. Surely Geo comes in with his A2 somehow, right? I mean, A1, sorry. There we go. Thank you, Geo. Wait. Why didn't the boss have ads when he didn't have minions in Knight's Revenant's crypt? Why not? Am I losing my mind? Surely we just fought the boss in Knight's Revenant, and it was stage 7 as well, and it never had minions. Wait, that's weird. Guys, please let me know why that just happened, unless I'm losing my mind. I'm 98% sure that the boss never had minions during my Knight's Revenant stage 7 fight. Why? There's so much I still have to learn, man. Because he hasn't put on his fear, the boss hasn't put fear on my champs. Is it because of the attacks they're using against it that he's reacting in this way, or he's defending in this way? So many questions I have, so much research to do, so much to still learn. However, 3 stars has been achieved. And on to stage 8 we go. And another 3 stars on stage 8. Just gonna keep going. We've got the keys, like I said. We've got the extra keys as well from Tag Team Arena. So we'll just push it through. I wonder if I put my gear back onto Geo, because I took it off for somebody in Knight's Revenant, right? Did I end up putting it back onto Geo? This is one of the negative things about this strategy, right? You need to be 100% sure that you've actually put your gear back on. Now I'm sitting here thinking, did I? They're not hitting as hard as they used to. Obviously, as we go up in difficulty, the stats of the enemies increase as well. Okay, now that it's finished, I'd like to check if I did put gear onto, or if I did put my gear back onto Geomancer. Okay, he's got his gear on, We've got our first death here in the Dwarf faction. So I think this is as far as we can go in terms of 3 stars for now with the champs that we have at our disposal. So yeah, we've only got 1 star. I'll probably run this again to see if we can maybe survive it, but I'll do that off recording because I feel like I've gotten my point across, right? So I always try and use all of my Faction Wars keys. So in terms of Faction Wars, like just a visual representation, boom, there's yet another claim that I could do. We started at 4 stars in Knight's Revenant. We're now at 27, and we've only moved up a few stars in Dwarf faction because we've already 3-starred most of them. But I mean, this is what I was talking about, right? This is, to me, it feels like a cheat code. Something that if you just didn't think about before, you might be limiting your potential in Faction Wars by simply just not even thinking about this. Or maybe I've spoken to a couple of people and some guys are like, yo, I don't want to do that. Maybe it's like the reason could be it's just too much extra admin, or I'd rather want enough gear so that I can actually build these champions and not have to swap and change and chop and change gear. But to me, this feels like a cheat code, right? I've just gotten, for example, in this video, an epic book and 200k silver that I never had before. And I probably wouldn't have done it or been able to do it if the gear removal wasn't free, because I wouldn't have the mindset of, I can change this free of charge and I can change it back free of charge. But let me put it onto my Faction Wars team because it is the best gear sets that I've got on my best champions, right? You're gonna put your best gear on your best champions. I've taken that gear set off of my main champs and put them into my Faction Wars teams. This to me truly feels like a cheat code because it's given me progress that I wouldn't have had before. And for somebody like me that enjoys Faction Wars, it's also allowing me to learn the attacks and learn the kits that different champions bring that you wouldn't necessarily see otherwise. And in one of the other videos on the channel, I think it was the first ever video, I mentioned that I genuinely enjoy Faction Wars because it allows me to learn a thing or two about champions who don't necessarily get the spotlight often. So yeah, that's the end of this one. Nothing too crazy. Maybe some of you have already been doing this. Maybe some of you haven't even thought of doing this. Maybe you're like one of the people I spoke to and you're like, I don't want to do this. I'd rather build my champions accordingly with their own set because I don't want them to share clothing. Maybe you just want to build a specific champion with their own gear and you don't want to build them if you don't have gear for them, which is cool, right? Play Raid Shadow Legends the way you feel like playing Raid Shadow Legends and the way that brings you the most joy. My last question to you is, have I missed anything else in terms of how I do Faction War? I know that I've mainly focused on taking gear off and putting gear on free of charge, etc. But have you seen a champion in any of my rosters that I should use that I've been neglecting, first of all? Second of all, who are your MVPs that are currently carrying you in Faction Wars? Somebody that's not really spoken about often, or even if they are, drop them down in the comments below, guys. We will be back to a regular schedule again. I will ensure that the videos keep going. I'm chasing consistency, so let's do this together. Thank you so much for watching, and remember, Faction Wars is important, not only because you can get Lydia, but if you're somebody like me who enjoys playing a game in depth and learning as much as you can about said game, Faction Wars to me has taught me so much about champions that I didn't even know I I had until I opened a Faction War script. And then I go into their kits, I dive into their kits, I see what their A1 brings, A2, A3, their passive, their auras, etc. So I've been enjoying it. If you're one of those who enjoy Faction Wars, again, please let me know down below. I'll see you in the next one. Happiness is a choice, kindness is free. Leave your mark, yo. Peace out.